Awakening rarely begins the way people imagine. There's no flash of heavenly light, no angel descending with a message, no booming voice telling you your life is about to shift. Instead, it begins with something far quieter and far more unsettling. It starts with a crack in the reality you thought was solid. At first, you barely notice it. A strange feeling that something in your world has stopped making sense. You wake up in the morning and look around your room, and for a moment you don't recognize the life you've built. The job you once chased no longer excites you. Conversations that once felt normal now feel hollow. People you used to admire suddenly seem asleep, repeating the same thoughts, the same routines, the same emotional cycles, while something inside you whispers, there is more. That whisper is the first sign. Most people ignore it. They drown it in distractions, routines, entertainment, work, or endless noise. But if you're reading this, it means the whisper became loud enough that you couldn't ignore it anymore. Something inside you began pushing upward, like a seed cracking open in the dark soil. Painful, confusing, but inevitable. Awakening always starts with discomfort, not because something is wrong with you, but because something deeper is trying to emerge. You begin to sense the invisible weight of expectations you've silently carried your whole life. You notice how much of your identity was shaped by family, society, culture, teachers, and traditions, layers upon layers telling you who you should be, while your real self waited patiently underneath. Suddenly you realize you've been living inside a version of yourself that was created for survival, not authenticity. This realization doesn't feel like enlightenment. It feels like loss, a shedding, a quiet internal earthquake. Your old reality begins to crack in subtle ways. You outgrow conversations that once entertained you. You feel disconnected in places that used to feel familiar. You sense a strange gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. You question beliefs you never dared to question before. It's not that your world is falling apart. It's that the false layers are dissolving. Many people interpret this stage as depression, boredom, or confusion. They say things like, I feel lost. I don't know what I want anymore. Why does everything feel empty? But feeling lost is not a sign you're off your path. It's the first sign you're stepping onto your real one. In this early stage of awakening, you begin noticing things you used to overlook. Small truths, small patterns, small inconsistencies. You sense when someone isn't being genuine. You feel the emotional temperature in a room. You become aware of the difference between who someone is and who they pretend to be. This heightened awareness is not an accident. It's your consciousness stretching, expanding beyond the limits it once accepted. It's uncomfortable sometimes, painfully so, because once your inner eyes begin to open, you can't force them shut again. You can't unsee what you're beginning to see. You can't fit back into the box you've already started growing out of. And this is where the first real fear appears. Not fear of the unknown, but fear of losing the known. You fear losing the identity you spent years building. You fear losing relationships that no longer match your frequency. You fear walking away from the life that once felt safe. You fear becoming someone new. This fear is natural. It's the threshold every awakened soul must cross. But here's the truth. The cracking of your old reality isn't destruction. It's revelation. It's the outer shell breaking so your inner truth can finally breathe. As the cracks widen, something extraordinary begins. A new awareness quietly rises from within, the awareness that your life is not falling apart. It's falling open. This is the beginning, the doorway. The moment your soul whispers, wake up. Once the first cracks appear in your old reality, something far more unsettling begins to unfold. The slow collapse of the identity you believed was you. Not the real you, the deeper, eternal consciousness within, but the personality you learned to wear like a mask in order to survive. At first, this collapse feels like instability. You feel off, but you can't explain why. Things that used to define you suddenly lose their meaning. The goals you once worked toward feel strangely irrelevant. The opinions you used to defend no longer feel like your own. The dreams that once motivated you no longer spark the same fire within. It's as if your inner foundation is dissolving, one layer at a time. This is not mistake. This is the awakening. Identity doesn't break gently, it unravels. You begin to see how much of your personality was shaped by forces you never consciously chose. Family expectations, cultural programming, social norms, childhood conditioning, emotional wounds. All of it wrapped together to form a version of you that felt safe but wasn't entirely true. And now, for the first time, you feel the weight of a truth that's been waiting in the background your whole life. Your old self was built for approval, not authenticity. This realization is both liberating and terrifying. You start noticing how often you adjusted your voice, softened your truth, or hid your real feelings to keep the peace. How many times you said yes when your soul was screaming no? How often you smiled while silently breaking inside? How deeply you've been shaped by the need to fit into a world that no longer fits you. This identity collapse often brings loneliness, not because you're isolated, but because you're shedding connections that were built on versions of you that no longer exist. Friends who resonated with your old self drift away. People who once understood you now feel distant. Situations that once felt comfortable now feel suffocating. You are not losing them. You are shedding what isn't aligned. Awakening requires you to leave behind everything that was created from fear, survival, or illusion. The second stage of awakening this identity collapse is where many people turn back. They cling to the old self because it feels familiar. They cling to the old life because it feels safe. They cling to the old version of reality because stepping into the unknown feels too overwhelming. But you can't rebuild your truth until the false layers have fallen away. This collapse is not destruction, it is purification. Your old identity is like a cocoon. It was necessary for your growth, but it was never meant to be permanent. When the time comes for transformation, the cocoon dissolves, whether the caterpillar feels ready or not. Here's the most powerful part. As your identity collapses, your real self begins to whisper louder. You begin to remember things you forgot you knew. Dreams resurface, dreams you abandoned because they didn't fit your old identity. Parts of you that you silenced suddenly rise again, demanding expression. Your intuition becomes louder than your logic. Your inner voice becomes clearer than the voices around you. This collapse feels chaotic because your soul is rearranging the blueprint of your life. You start asking questions you once avoided. Who am I without my job? Who am I without this relationship? Who am I without approval? Who am I when I'm no longer pretending? These questions break open the identity you constructed and create space for the identity your soul has been waiting to express. You don't lose yourself in this stage. You find yourself beneath the layers. This is the part of awakening where you stop trying to become who the world wants and begin becoming who you really are. The collapse of your former identity isn't the end. It's the clearing of the stage before the true self steps forward. There comes a moment in every awakening when the shift is no longer subtle. It becomes undeniable, immovable, inescapable. This is the stage where an invisible force inside you begins calling you toward a new direction, a direction your mind may not understand, but your soul recognizes instantly. This pull feels different from anything you've ever experienced. It's not excitement, it's not ambition, it's not desire. It's a deep, almost magnetic sensation, like something within you is reaching out to something beyond you, guiding you step by step, even when you don't know where you're going. Before this stage, you were questioning your life. Now, your life began questioning you. You wake up one morning and feel a strange certainty that something is about to change. You walk through familiar places and feel disconnected from them. You look at your own reflection and sense a version of you that hasn't fully arrived yet, but is getting closer. This is the soul calling you home. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in energy. You feel it as pressure on your chest during quiet moments. You feel it as a soft but persistent intuition telling you to let go of something. You feel it as sudden clarity in situations that were once confusing. You feel it as a longing not for a place but for yourself. This pull can feel like being guided by an invisible hand, not forced, but gently and undeniably redirected. You start remembering things you forgot you knew. Moments of insight arrive without effort. Old wounds resurface, not to hurt you, but to free you. Synchronicities appear at the exact moment you need them. Your soul begins rearranging your life from the inside out. This stage is especially powerful because for the first time, you're not trying to awaken. The awakening is pulling you. Something within you has taken over the steering wheel, and all you can do is trust the direction it's moving you toward. And trust is the hardest part. Your mind will resist. It will try to negotiate, argue, and cling. It will tell you the old life is safer. It will tell you change is too risky. It will try to bury the pull under logic, fear, or routine. But the inner call doesn't negotiate. It doesn't go away. It becomes louder the more you ignore it. It feels like a deep knowing that you're meant for something more, something you can sense even if you can't define it. You may feel drawn to new places without understanding why. You may feel called to spend more time alone. You may feel compelled to learn, explore, meditate, write, or wonder. You may feel a sudden surge of creativity or a quiet longing for silence. This is your soul reshaping your path before your mind can catch up. Some people mistake this stage for restlessness. Others think they're becoming unmotivated. Some believe they're losing interest in life. But you're not losing interest. You're outgrowing limitation. You're not confused. You're being redirected. The inner pull is your soul reclaiming the authority your mind once held. It's the part of you that remembers the truth gently calling, the part of you that forgot. This pull becomes the compass of your life. You start following feelings rather than forcing outcomes. You choose alignment over obligation. You choose authenticity over approval. You choose truth over comfort. And every time you follow the pull, something extraordinary happens. The world responds. Doors open. Opportunities appear. People shift. Life rearranges itself around your new frequency. This is the stage where awakening stops being an internal transformation and begins becoming an external reality. Your soul is not asking you to leap, it's asking you to listen. And listening is what brings you home. There comes a point in your awakening when the transformation is no longer just emotional or psychological, it becomes energetic. You feel it in your body, in your intuition, in the very air around you. Your entire vibration begins to shift. And suddenly, without effort or intention, your energy starts rejecting the old world you once fit into. This stage often feels confusing because nothing changed outwardly. The same people are in your life, the same routines exist, the same conversations happen. But something inside you responds differently now, almost as if your soul has developed a new sensitivity, a new radar that instantly detects what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. You can't tolerate dishonesty anymore. You can't hide your truth anymore. You can't pretend everything is fine when your soul is quietly screaming otherwise. Your energy begins pushing away what drains you and drawing in what elevates you. This shift is not a choice. It's a biological, emotional, spiritual recalibration. Your inner frequency is rising, and anything that vibrates lower begins to feel heavy, suffocating, or strangely incompatible. Suddenly, crowded places overwhelm you. Shallow conversations exhaust you. Negative people trigger an immediate sense of misalignment. Old habits feel lifeless. Mindless entertainment feels hollow. Arguments and drama feel unbearable. It's not because you've become too sensitive. It's because you've become more conscious. You're not breaking down. You're breaking free. This is the moment when your body knows before your mind does. A person walks into the room and your intuition senses their energy instantly. A conversation begins, and you feel a quiet discomfort before a single word is spoken. A situation unfolds, and your inner voice whispers, "You don't belong here anymore." Your soul no longer lets you ignore what you once tolerated During this stage, many people feel guilty. They think they're abandoning others. They think they're becoming distant or cold. But that's not what's happening. You're not abandoning people. You're abandoning the version of you that accepted less than you deserved. You're not becoming distant. You're creating space for your real self to breathe. The frequency shift makes you aware of how much of your old life was built on survival patterns, not soul alignment. You begin noticing the subtle emotional trades you used to make, saying yes when you meant no, pretending to be fine when you were breaking inside, tolerating negativity because you didn't want to disappoint others, carrying responsibilities that were never yours to bear. Now your energy rejects all of that naturally, automatically, powerfully, because awakening doesn't just elevate your consciousness, it strengthens your boundaries. Your emotional immune system gets stronger. Your intuitive filters become sharper. Your tolerance for misalignment disappears. You may feel the urge to withdraw, more often not out of sadness, but because your soul is protecting its energy as it rebuilds itself. Solitude becomes nourishment rather than punishment. Silence becomes clarity rather than emptiness. You start seeking what feels real, people who speak with truth, spaces that allow peace, experiences that feed your soul, connections that feel meaningful, paths that resonate with your inner rhythm. And without even trying, you begin transforming your environment, not through force, but through resonance. Like a tuning fork that elevates everything around it, your presence begins influencing the energy of people and situations. The right people feel drawn to you. The wrong people distance themselves. Opportunities aligned with your higher path appear effortlessly. Doors that once remained shut begin to open. Relationships shift, reveal themselves, or transform. This is the magic of the frequency shift. You're not becoming better than your old life. You're becoming more aligned with your true one, and the world around you responds accordingly. Your energy is speaking a new language now, one of authenticity, clarity, higher perception, and deep inner truth. And because of that, the old world can no longer hold you the way it once did. This is the inner evolution the awakening was preparing you for. Every awakening reaches a moment where the shift stops being gradual and becomes irreversible. This is the breaking point, the moment your inner evolution becomes stronger than your old identity, stronger than your fears, stronger than the life you once clung to for safety. Up until now, the awakening whispered. Now it roars. This stage rarely arrives gently. It usually comes in the form of a choice, a realization, or an emotional turning point that shakes something deep inside you. Maybe you wake up one morning and just know you can't keep living the same life. Maybe a situation collapses unexpectedly, a relationship, a job, a belief system, and reveals the truth you've been avoiding. Maybe you finally feel exhausted from carrying a version of yourself that was never fully you. Whatever form it takes, the message is the same. You cannot go backwards anymore. This breaking point isn't a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. Your old self tries one last time to hold on. It clings to familiar patterns, old comforts, and the illusion of safety. Your mind will say, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I should stay where I am. Maybe I should go back to who I was. But your soul responds with a clarity so strong it cuts through every doubt. Not anymore. This is where awakening becomes unstoppable. You begin to see the emotional cost of staying small. You feel the weight of the lies you told yourself just to fit in. You recognize how much of your life was built around avoiding discomfort rather than seeking truth. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Awakening demands honesty, raw, uncompromising honesty. And honesty always leads to transformation. During the breaking point, you might experience moments of intense emotion. Not because you're falling apart, but because your soul is releasing years, sometimes decades, of stored fear, pain, and limitation. You may cry without understanding why. You may feel anger rising from places you buried long ago. You may feel waves of grief for the version of yourself you're leaving behind. These emotions are not setbacks. They are cleansing. You're shedding the final layers of the old frequency. This stage also reveals your deepest strength. You begin making choices your old self would never dare to make. You walk away from relationships that drain your spirit. You step out of environments that suffocate your soul. You set boundaries you never believed you had the right to set. You stop apologizing for your truth. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. For the first time, you choose yourself not from selfishness, but from clarity. You stop asking for permission to grow. You stop waiting for external validation. You stop hiding the parts of you that are meant to shine. This is the moment people around you may say, "You've changed." And they're right. You're no longer running on old programming. You're no longer suppressing your intuition. You're no longer shaping yourself to fit a life that was too small for your spirit. This breaking point is where awakening becomes more than an internal shift. It becomes a lived reality. You act differently, you speak differently, you choose differently, you see differently. And because you change, your world must change with you. This stage marks the true turning of the tide. You're no longer fighting for your awakening, you're embodying it. You're no longer trying to awaken, you are awakened. You are becoming aligned with the life your soul has been quietly guiding you toward all along. This is the threshold, the point of no return. The moment your inner truth becomes stronger than any external influence. Beyond this point, the awakening no longer requires effort. It becomes your natural state, your new way of being, your deeper path unfolding. You have crossed the line between who you were and who you're becoming. Once you cross the breaking point, something extraordinary begins to unfold. The world doesn't change overnight, but your relationship with it does. You begin living from a deeper center, a quieter clarity, a grounded inner truth that feels timeless and unshakable. For the first time in your life, you're not reacting, you're responding. You're not surviving, you're living. This stage of awakening is not loud. It is not dramatic. It feels like a calm sunrise after a long storm, a sense of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. You start realizing that the peace you were searching for was never out there in achievements, relationships, status, or material success. It was always within you, waiting for the noise to quiet down enough for you to hear it. You no longer feel the desperate need to prove yourself. You no longer cling to outcomes with anxiety or fear. You no longer chase people or situations that drain your energy. You no longer abandon yourself for approval or acceptance. Instead, something deeper guides you, an inner compass that never points you in the wrong direction. Your decisions begin coming from alignment rather than impulse. Your intuition speaks clearer than it ever has. Situations unfold more effortlessly, synchronicities appear more often, and life begins to flow in a way that once seemed impossible. This doesn't mean challenges disappear, but your relationship with them transforms. Where you once reacted with fear, you now respond with awareness. Where you once felt powerless, you now stand rooted in your truth. Where you once saw obstacles, you now see invitations to grow. Your awakening has given you something priceless: perspective. You understand that everything in your life, even the painful moments, played a role in guiding you here. You no longer blame your past, you integrate it. You no longer fear your emotions, you listen to them. You no longer resist change, you welcome it. In this stage, your energy becomes a quiet force, not aggressive, not dominant, but unmistakably strong. People notice it. Some feel drawn to your presence. Some feel intimidated. Some feel inspired. Some feel confronted by their own unhealed parts. That's because awakening doesn't just change you, it changes how others experience you. You've become a mirror that reflects truth, peace, and authenticity. You become a reminder of what others have forgotten in themselves. This is where you start attracting people who match your new frequency. People who speak your language, not the language of words, but the language of consciousness. People who nurture your growth instead of resisting it. People who understand your silence as deeply as your words. You also begin attracting experiences aligned with your higher path. Opportunities that once required force now show up naturally. Ideas flow with ease. Creativity awakens. Your purpose becomes clearer not through searching but through unfolding. Life after awakening feels like returning home not to a place but to yourself. You begin living from your essence rather than your conditioning. You begin loving without fear rather than from insecurity. You begin choosing paths that feel true rather than safe. You begin creating your life consciously rather than unconsciously. And eventually a realization dawns. You were never becoming your true self. You were remembering it. The entire journey wasn't about adding anything. It was about removing everything that was never you in the first place. The masks, the fears, the expectations, the illusions, all of it fell away so your authentic nature could finally emerge. This chapter is not the end. It's the beginning of a new way of being, one aligned with truth, clarity, intuition, love, and consciousness. The life ahead of you is not something you chase. It's something you magnetize by existing in your natural frequency. You have awakened, and now the real journey begins. Make sure to subscribe to watch more videos.